Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to In the Studio, episode 15. Our last about TI. This is the post-mortem. We're here with part 2, and we've got PPD now joining us to talk about TI4 from the player perspective. Peter, what's the good word, my friend?
I mean, TI4, it was the international. It was good.
It's good. It was awesome. It's huge.
It was my first one, so I had a pretty good experience.
Well, you've been to a lot of other lands, right? You've been to NASL, you've been to DreamHacks. How did TI compare to the other events you've been to?
Hey, it was our event as well.
Yeah, the summit, yeah.
On the summit, come on, selling us short.
It was a close second to the summit, but
okay.
No, it was really good, really well put together. There wasn't very many hiccups throughout the event, so overall it went really smooth, and I was very happy with how it went.
Yeah. Before we get into the meat of it, I want to ask you about the way Valve handles moving all of your equipment. Because you bring your keyboard and mouse, you give it to them, they get it all set up, and they've got a little hard drive with all your settings on it. How is that? Is it cool? Is it awesome not having to set up your equipment? Did they execute it flawlessly? Did they lose your mouse?
Yeah, there's some pros and cons. No, they didn't lose anything. Obviously, they kept it really well organized. There was like an individual bag for each player, and then it had like your seating position on it too. So they were very efficient doing that. It was really nice not having to like go up to a computer, a brand new computer, and like fix all your LAN settings and change all your hotkeys and make sure your game looks the way it's supposed to look, because everybody plays with different settings. Yeah. So in that regard, it was nice. The only thing that wasn't perfect about it is that unless you had like identical clones for your backup gear, it was hard to practice, because we all have like Razer keyboards, but we didn't have like the same keys. The ground keys or whatever. So our backup keyboards that we're using to practice with were a little bit different than the ones we're actually playing with.
Yeah, that sucks. I guess you don't usually travel to events with 2 sets of gear, so...
I do now, I guess.
Yeah, seriously. So, alright, first let's get into the big topic, man. I know you talked about it in your blog a little bit, guys. If you didn't read PPD's blog about TI4, it is on evilgeniuses.gg. It's quite lengthy. It goes over pretty much all of EG's wins, starting with like the summit and the other events that they've been to. Right. So it's definitely worth a read. Talk to us a little bit about Vici versus EG, the elimination series, and just what went wrong, man.
Straight to the end, huh?
Yeah, straight. We're going straight into it here. We're hard-hitting questions. No more of these softballs, man.
Well, we haven't had too much experience playing Chinese teams, but we got to play Vici at the summit, and then we got to see them play at ESL, and then we got to play them at TI, and we were pretty confident, I think, overall, just the way we could play against them, against their play style, but obviously it didn't work out. We had a lot of issues with hero pool, okay, so before TI, we did a ton of practice. We had the 3 lands, ton of boot camp, and we had a lot of heroes and strategies and ideas that we wanted to use, because we decided that we're not going to be able to win TI with just one play style, so we needed to have some other things. And after day 1 of group stage, and then losing to IG the next morning, so we were like 3-3 at that point, we had a pretty serious talk about cutting out all the extra stuff and just going with what we know best. And we did that for the rest of the tournament, and it worked. It worked really well. Like we got to 3rd place, and I mean, for future tournaments, I think we definitely need to expand our hero pools, because especially in game 1, like we ran out of heroes for mid, and we ran out of heroes for safe lane. And right. I mean, you pick usually you pick like a support and your offlaner, or like we kind of have like weird drafting, because we do like 2 kind of like offlaner kind of things sometimes, but we just ran out. Like they just banned all of our tours heroes, and we just had to go with TA against Razer, which is definitely not acceptable, and that was not good.
Yeah. And I know in game 3 you mentioned that the Mirana pick was particularly not effective. Can you elaborate on why Mirana was no good in that game 3?
Well, Mirana could have been okay. It's just when I do my drafting, a lot of when I think about the drafts and strategy, I do it mostly by myself. I said previously, all I think about, especially during the past 2 months, has been Dota. So everywhere I'm going, before I fall asleep at night, I'm just thinking about drafts, strategies, ideas, and stuff like that. So I'm sure my team thinks about Dota a lot, but I don't think that they think about it to the extent that I think about it. And when I do these drafts and I have these ideas, I do ask my teammates for help, and I do ask them for recommendations and whether they think this is good or not. But when I go into a draft, I need to be able to filter out which ideas from my teammates are good and which ideas are bad. And I need to be able to just, ultimately it's my decision. So it has to be my call. And if their idea is bad, I need to know that it's bad. And, picking Mirana wasn't the worst idea, but still going with Timbersaw after that probably wasn't the right way to go.
A lot of people said if you just assigned the heroes differently, it would have made a big difference. I think wanted Timber mid, Mason on Mirana, support Alk for you, instead of the way you guys laid it. Do you agree with that, or do you think it was like no matter how you assigned those heroes, it wouldn't have mattered? It was just a straight up draft issue.
Well, it couldn't have gone worse than it did, so maybe it would have gone a bit better. But still, our tour wasn't really comfortable playing Timbersaw. It's not a hero we practiced, and if we were going to lose in an elimination match, it was going to be, with our best stuff. So, we just weren't comfortable with our mid hero being Timbersaw, so we just, went with the Alchemist instead.
I remember he used to play it a lot. I was watching him back when he's on NEL. He'd spam Timbersaw games, but I guess it's been a while.
Yeah, it's well, we kind of fell into this playstyle of running our one hero mid, and Timbersaw's not really our tour. He only plays. For the most part, he just plays agilities and hard carries.
Right.
And it was working for us, like I said, during the group stage and against DK as well. But Vici was very good about punishing that, and they definitely deserved their victory.
I guess the flip side, Peter, and I don't know if you agree with this, would be a team like DK, kind of as a contrast to you, where they ran everything, even at the main event. They picked an anti-mage for burning. Ice was on Prophet, which isn't that weird. It's one of his old school signature heroes, but I've barely seen him play it, and I've cast a lot of their games over the past few months, and it seemed like lack of practice hurt them there too. Burning skilled Mana Burn really early against Shadow Demon. After that, the game felt like it was over for him. Ice in the Prophet game, he basically said, I threw the game. That was the LGD versus DK game where they're up 2 racks and still lost. So, do you think it's just a general issue of teams struggling to find that balance between being versatile and having and still being practiced on your heroes? What can you do differently? Just played more different heroes in scrims?
I think us as EG, in an entirety, I think we basically decided that scrims are almost pointless. Practicing scrims is going to be nothing like matches, and LAN events have their own meta, so determining strategies and stuff like that are not very useful. I think that this year I'm going to make sure all of my players play pubs constantly all the time, and I think randoming your hero and playing every single hero in the game is the way you can become one of the best players.
Really?
Does the team agree? From what I've seen of Arteezy, he likes to just grind one hero and try and master it.
I'm sure it can be frustrating at times when you lose games with inferior heroes, but expanding your hero pool and being able to be flexible in any situation or at any tournament is going to be what makes losers into winners, I think.
What about his MMR?
I lost 300 yesterday, so it's just a number, man. It's just a number.
Just a number.
Keep telling yourself that, Peter. You're on the road to 5K.
Peter,
I'm at 6,023 right now. One more loss.
Wow, nice.
I've struggled to hit find match today. It's been really difficult.
This is what a struggle, man.
Fear is real.
That's such a first world problem, Jesus.
Yeah.
So I want to talk back about what you said about tournaments developing their own meta, because that's something that's very interesting and seems to always happen, especially with a tournament with as many games as TI. What are your feelings on just how ubiquitous Razor was throughout the tournament? I know you were some of the teams running it probably the most effectively. There's some teams running it with a little bit less amount of effectiveness. How do you feel about the hero specifically, just in general, and also as a first pick hero? Because that's when I talked to people about Razor that maybe didn't feel like it, they just kind of disagreed with the idea of him being a first phase pick.
So Razor's definitely definitely a top tier hero. He has a couple of things that make him really strong, and that's his laning phase, and also the Aghanim's upgrade, where he can just
melt towers,
demolish buildings. Yeah, it's something else. And he's also very hard for support heroes to kill and gank because of the purge off the passive. And he just works at all stages of the game, which makes him really strong. He has a couple weaknesses, he doesn't have any lockdown. He chases kind of well, but if you can break the static link, he really doesn't build for damage. He builds defensive items like BKB, Aghanims, AC, like yeah, like a refresher. Like he doesn't build like a butterfly or a crit or anything like that. So if you're able to like get away from him and like kite him with heroes like Weaver or Quap or Mirana or just heroes that can kind of get away, you can kind of be okay. That being said, like he had a huge impact on this tournament, and I think the Aghanims upgrade is probably what did it. Like his ability to just destroy buildings and force fights is just out of this world.
Yeah.
So you feel like he's good, even like because so how we saw Razor a lot. We actually the last tournament we saw a lot of Razor was TI3, and it was generally because teams were running a lot of OD mid, a lot of Lone Druid. It was like kind of a counter pick.
Yeah.
And so do you think Razor has kind of grown to be more than a counter pick, and then he's just good on his own and someone you can first pick and just kind of dare the other team to outpick you, kind of sort of?
I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to play around with it too much, but I do think he probably is almost okay in every game. I mean, you can put him mid or you can put him safe lane. He can maybe even go in an aggressive tri lane. I mean, his Q, the kid damage from his electric pulse or whatever it is pretty good.
Yeah, now I can't think of the name of it.
Plasma Field.
Plasma Field. There you go.
That's the one.
I couldn't think of it either.
Really close.
I don't win often, boys, but you know, every so often I've got that little piece of knowledge. I want to hear about this Enigma and Omni Knight duo that you guys used to defeat Alliance in the group stage. I know there were some fans out there, Coughs or Action Slacks, that were very happy to see Omni Knight. Thoughts, Peter?
Yeah, Omni Knight, he's pretty good.
Badass.
Yeah, we had a lot of success with him in scrims against C9, I think. And we just ran like these death ball push strategies with like Necrolite, Death Prophets, Razor, Dragon Knight, and like Abaddon as well. We'd never picked like you don't pick Abaddon and Omni together, but maybe you could. But Omni is definitely a really good hero. His aura is pretty underrated, and the repel is incredibly like long duration. It's like longer than a BKB.
That's ridiculous, yeah.
And his ultimate is amazing as well. So he's very difficult to lane, and that's always been the problem with him. But when you have Enigma, you get that deny for the beginning, so he can kind of get like his level 2, and like the lane equilibrium's a little messed up. So that kind of allows him to get through the awful laning phase. We ended up putting him safe lane because we thought Alliance was going to do an aggressive tri lane, which they generally do with Wisp CK, and that kind of made our early game a little funky. But you can see how strong he is in like team fights late game. He's just
I was surprised at how well it went, considering like Universe got very little farm that game. I noticed because you about like 10 or 15, or I think before the 10-minute mark, you swapped lanes. I think,
yeah,
because I think Universe ran to the off lane,
yep.
And then he was just going to get nothing because it was Dire off lane and he's an Omni Knight and it's tough. But he was able to contribute a lot without really any big items.
It's Omni, dude. That
Right.
hero just needs levels.
Right, exactly. So I was surprised at how I was kind of like worried. I was like, man, this Omni's not going to be good. Universe has like 30 last hits. It's like 15, 16 minutes in the game. This guy has no way to catch up. If they're running this as like a hero that they're trying to give priority, it's not going to work out well. But it did. It's just good. So.
And one of the big issues with a hero like Omni or heroes like Abaddon, like these incredibly defensive but strong teamfight supports, is that they lack catch. And generally teams like to split push against these heroes because they, when you're playing against an Omni or Abaddon, you don't really have to worry about getting ganked. So split pushing is generally the way to go because you don't want to team fight them because their heroes are just stronger. Like Omni and Abaddon are just the king of team fighting. So, but the thing is, if you pick like a lot of tower push with it, you kind of force them to combat you. So when you have like Enigma, Dragon Knight, Razor maybe with an Aghanims, you can just kind of force fights at towers, and Omni reigns supreme.
Now, so you talked about how you can't get ganked with like a lineup like that. Is there a drawback of maybe not being able to gank that much yourself with like heroes like Omni Knight or Abaddon? Do you just have to have kind of the more mid-game team fight where you then force the fights? You don't gank for the first 10 minutes, but then you kind of run at them post 10 minutes?
Yeah, you definitely have to force fights with the hero, and it's very helpful to be on Dire because you can just, worst comes to worst, let's just go do Roshan, guys, and the other team's like, oh no, they're Roshing, let's try and fight them, and then you're just like Guardian Angel, and then they just lose the team fight and you win the game. So.
Hey Peter, I want to completely change topics if that's okay.
Sure.
Level 1 Roche by Cloud9 at the event. Obviously, it didn't work. What do you think? I was personally very surprised that anyone would attempt that, but do you think it was worth the risk? It didn't work out, but
no, it wasn't worth the risk. But Yeah, I mean, if they got it, they would have won the game.
I
So
thought they would have. I thought they could have won straight up.
yeah,
That's
I think they could have as well. I think they definitely could have won the game if they just played normal, but they took a risk. What they probably should have done is just, pretended they were roaching, and that way Enigma's jungle doesn't get warded, and then you just have Enigma go to the jungle and just free farms an 8-minute mech, and then you win the game.
That's actually a good point. If they're worried about Roche, they can't be going in your woods during that time.
Yeah,
They actually apparently they wanted to though. I think RTK said like they were going to send 3 or 4 top and 1 to scout, but FY was insistent that they should check Roche.
Right.
So they were trying to do both. But I mean, if they're actually level 1 Roche, you can't stop it with 1 hero. So
Yeah.
and I guess on that note, looking at how teams performed, and obviously you guys had a chance to scrim maybe not all the teams, but a lot of them. Which teams do you think most overperformed? By which I mean, like, they did a lot better at the event than what you expected, than what you thought they were capable of. Were there any teams that really surprised you, like, holy shit, these guys looked like ass in scrims, but they just stepped it up at the main event?
Of course, Liquid. I mean, when we scrimmed against them when we were in Europe, and we would play them our last game of the night because it was more in the afternoon for them, and we would win in like 5 seconds. And then we'd just be like, okay, this was a total waste of time. And we would just pick whatever we wanted. Like, Mason had his range lone druid build, where he just refused to skill his ultimate. And we would just run it against Liquid, and he was like, yeah, this build looks really good. And I was like, there's no way this actually works against a good team. And they played really well. And
why do you think they overperformed? Well, why do you think they played so much better at the event? Was it just the BO1 format? Did they actually just step it up and were legitimately just a better team? Like, what would you attribute it to?
I think they found a style that worked really well for them. Like, they were able to just play really aggressive. Like, Way 2 just roamed around on heroes and set up kills with like Earthshaker and Wraith King. Quakefall also played really well, and I think TC found a couple of heroes that he really excelled on. Like, he was able to just sit in his lane, and he's very good like one-on-one. So by them playing so aggressive with their supports, they let TC and Quakefall have their one-on-ones, and generally they just dominated those matchups.
When you were scrimming against Liquid a lot, was Bulba mainly on support? Had they made that change largely before TI, or were they kind of in between? Okay. Do you think that was one of the bigger differences with the team, with like Bulba taking into the support role, being able to play really aggressively?
I think it worked better for the other players. I think Bulba was able to kind of direct things, which made it a lot easier for the other guys to just focus on doing their job.
Okay. Well, they needed someone to direct things. From what I heard, like, they just had no one making calls before that, and the team was like, literally, it's like 3 different ideas at once in a game, which, I mean, you look at the teams that did really well at the event, and most of them had, when it really came to crunch time, had like a clear leader, someone who's just directing the squad.
Well, I think the biggest issue with Liquid is they're just like, sometimes support duos just don't work out, and I heard that like Jimmy and Way 2 just weren't they weren't on the same page.
Yeah, they didn't see eye to eye at all.
No.
They just kept trying different things until they found one that sucked. Like, for a while, TC played support, and obviously it just didn't really work out. But I was kind of disappointed that they didn't make it to top 8 because they played so well and they were so close.
Yeah,
and
would have made a nice storyline.
Speaking of that, Peter, what do you think of the format for the event? Like, first of all, the question of just having a group stage that's BO1s, and from that teams just get eliminated flat out. Secondly, the way that it worked with the bubble races, they also had tiebreak. They didn't have tiebreak matches for 6th place, even though if you finish top 6 in the main event, in the group stage, you're guaranteed to go to the main event, which is like a, I don't know, $450,000 jump in prize money. Overall format, this was obviously very different from ESL, Dream League. What do you think? Were you happy? You guys did pretty well, but overall, you like the event?
Well, overall, I definitely like the event, but the format, not exactly. I think it was really, really, the most disappointing thing is that all the teams didn't get to make it to the main tournament where all the spectators were, especially, like, obviously teams that had, like, parents and friends fly out. That had to be really disappointing. And for the best of 1 group stage, I wasn't the biggest fan either, and I think that, I don't know, like, we went 1-4 on Radiant, and then, like
8-0,
11-0 on Dire
in the group stage, and then
So, like, obviously Dire worked out like massively really well for us because all of our strategies were just like abusing Roshan, and then on Radiant we were trying to do like these funky push strats that we practiced but just didn't work. So, I really dislike the format, but I can understand like it's really difficult for Valve to like especially when they're moving up the size and like the scale of these events, like into Key Arena and then ESL did in the big arena. It's hard to. I don't know if they can book the venues for longer or how expensive it is. Of course, I don't know the numbers, but um, I just like they needed to have more teams there. Like
Yeah.
and like
What really
the year before they
like,
did.
what really bothered me, sorry to jump in, is just like they didn't even have banners for the teams. It's like these teams didn't exist for the purpose of TI.
No.
When they turned off the
I-
lights, I was like,
The turn out the lights thing was like I kind of see what they're trying to do there. It's just like Jesus. It's like Liquid, Arrow, not Alliance, like all these
Yeah.
teams that didn't qualify for the main event. It's like they might as well never have come to Seattle. And last
Yeah.
year they had like team autograph sessions. They had like official signings for the team. I felt like all the teams were integrated into the main event in some way. This year, it's like anyone who didn't actually qualify for the main event, they're just nobodies. They didn't have their own boxes. They didn't have
Yeah.
BAM. It's like I felt like it was just a huge slap in the face. And
I think the lack of
different
boxes was the
sort of
biggest deal.
players, some of them really weren't happy with it. So
Yeah, I bumped into Hani on like halfway through the main event. And I was like, "So you been having a good time?" He's like, "Actually, not really. There's nowhere for me to go. I either have to walk around and get mobbed by fans, or like sneak into one of the other boxes that I'm not really allowed into. Like, I feel like there's no place for me here. What do I do?" So I think a lot of the teams that were eliminated just watched the stream from their hotel room, which is sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
How was the fan experience for you, Peter? Was it weird, like walking out and not being able to like go get your cinnamon glazed pecans in peace?
cinnamon glazed pecan.
Those things were
didn't get to try
delicious.
those. They
They
sounded
were
really
delicious. Yeah.
good. It was really. I mean, it was nice. Like it was. It's obviously something I don't get to experience every day. So definitely, put that into perspective. It's very nice. It's very humbling to have like such a strong fan base, especially because it was in the U.S. So I was trying to, sign as many autographs and take as many pictures as I could. It was a little bit like taxing. Like it was like when you definitely walk down the stairs, like after the end of a game, like there was just like mobs and mobs. Like there's a ton of pictures of other players getting mobbed as well. But no, I think it was fun, and it wasn't like there wasn't anyone like totally out of control.
Right.
So it was good.
I thought it was a good balance because, like last year at Benaroya, like players and stuff could walk around and you'd sign 2 or 3 autographs, shake some hands, and like be able to go on your way because it wasn't as many people. And this is like it strikes a good balance. I think that I'm afraid that if we get any bigger, players just like won't ever be able to go out amongst the crowd.
The red carpet thing was really awkward.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
what was
It was
this?
super awkward.
Did you not?
was
Did
like-
you not walk the carpet going into the venue each day?
No, I went in the back door. Dude.
Oh,
The
okay.
shady like production.
Oh,
ring.
because okay. Well, when I managed to always get dropped off, like even the production staff. So I would always walk in with like the Chinese casters and like people that no one knew, and it was still people lined up at the the carpet to walk in, and we were all strutting down the carpet, and no one knew who we were, and so
Yeah, they should have like had
It's
some
kinda
music
awkward.
playing or something. Like, it was just like the first day when we got here, like first day all the teams got here, we pulled up in the limos and stuff, and
yeah.
like the crowd was like clapping for a while, and then it just got really quiet, and they're like, "Oh, sign autographs." Like, no, we have to go, and
Right.
there was like some music playing. There wouldn't be like that dead noise of just silence or whatever. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think some music would have gone a long way out there.
Yeah. Well, I was
Fair enough.
pleasantly surprised by most of the fans that I met. I was like ready for some like really intense people that some people can't take the hint or they want to linger around. Everyone I met was really just
Yeah.
pretty normal. Like, hey, can
Yeah.
I get a picture? Nice to meet you. Walk away, and there was only at one bar I got accosted by a crazed British fan, and that's about it. Which is
All right.
pretty good.
It's part of the experience.
It is,
Peter-
man. Phew.
Peter, who do you want to put on blast? You're from the you're from NA Dota at
Come on.
some point in the
Let's-
past. Who do you want to
Don't
call
do it.
out? Yeah, I watch your stream. You flame everyone constantly. You
Oh,
wanna-
I don't.
well, you're a flamer.
I'm
What's
all
going
about
on
the
last year?
FUN.
Who underperformed the most at TI? Who played the worst? Who do you want to call out? Floor is yours.
I don't want to step on too many toes, but I think Alliance really underperformed, obviously. I think DK really underperformed as well. And I think LGD really stepped it up, and it was a really pleasant surprise to see them do well.
Did you think LGD like legitimately deserved their results and like if the format was different, you still think they would have done that well? Basically, they were the real deal for you, LGD.
I mean, I don't think the format gave them any favors. Like they barely made it through the groups, and then they kicked ass in the playoffs. So
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair. I'm just trying to pick your brain a bit.
Yeah.
Like that's where I look at newbie, and they barely made it into the playoffs. So they won, what was it, six BO3s or 5 BO3s? So
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Imagine if they didn't make it in.
They went 7-8 in the first 15 games, and their next 15 games they went 12-3.
Yeah, imagine if they didn't make it in. It would have been a totally different tournament.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now that I've made this nice and awkward.
All right. Well, we are getting towards the end here, Peter. I wanted to ask you two more quick things. One of them, we did an interview with Vic Roman kind of about coaching and data collection and kind of the future of support staff around teams as more money gets involved in the scene. You guys had Fear as your coach. Can you talk to us about that a little bit? How involved was he? Do you think that not just Fear in general, but coaches have a strong place in Dota? Do you guys feel you might have done a little bit worse had he not been there to do strategy with you?
At TI, not really. Like it was really helpful during. It was really helpful during the group stage to have Fear, because he was able to watch all the matches that I wasn't able to watch because there was so much going on at once. But I don't think, unless like a coach is like really into it, and like it's a really difficult job, I think. And maybe the other coaches are doing better, but for us, I don't think we'll have a coach again.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough too, like because the way Dota is done is it's different than any other competitive sport, the traditional sport, and that the coach doesn't have like play-by-play insight. Like he can't yell plays at you, he can't communicate with you at all. All strategy must be done by the players, and in no other traditional sport is it like that. Like even soccer, which is kind of free form, like the coach still has different like ideas and will tell people to do things during the game. Yeah. And so a coach is kind of a weird role to fill. And if you're kind of and in some ways, if you're a captain, you might be a little bit of a control freak. Like you're the one in charge of your team's strategy. If you're making calls, you're doing drafts. It might be hard to listen to somebody else who's not, in the game with you, right?
Yeah, and it was really. Can I go? It was really helpful. During our boot camp, we played D2L, and during the summit as well, because Fear was able to sit behind us and listen in. And I think communication is like obviously one of the most important things in Dota, and having him to be able to like help us after the games about like where we communicated poorly and where we needed to communicate better. I think that is definitely the most helpful thing of a coach. But a lot of these tournaments don't allow that, so maybe if that's allowed at future tournaments, a coach would be much more helpful.
What do you think is different with DK? Because I see 71, and he's actually not just there to help analyze, but like to me he's like the most complete coach in the scene, where the players, they respect him. He's like an emotional mentor for the team. He seems to be involved pretty heavily in strategy talks as well with them. Like, why is he different?
Well, he's also probably part-time manager as well, so he's like coach/manager, which makes things a little bit different. But I think, I don't know like how exactly DK works, but it seems like they really respect his opinions and value what he has to say about like drafts and strategy. And I'm not sure if that's really the best thing, because I don't think a coach knows best. I think the team knows best for the most part.
So you would say with a coach it should more be limited to like non-strategic stuff, more like focused on the way people are interacting, communicating, out of game stuff even?
I think a coach should be someone that can look at your games objectively as well as your opponents and say what they do best and what you do best and what would work against them or what could possibly work, like what to watch out for, what to do, stuff like that.
So you see a coach as being more like a scout in a lot of ways.
Yeah, to an extent, but at the same time, he is able to have this like objective outlook on your team and say, hey, this guy needs to step it up or this guy needs to communicate more. And when you're like in a team like that, people can kind of shift blame back and forth and kind of say like, oh, I didn't communicate because you didn't communicate or something like that. And a coach will come in and just like lay down the law and say, this is how it is. And everybody can like look at that and be like, okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Very good, Peter. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for making some time for us here to talk about TI4. Congratulations on your prize money. Any big plans on how you're going to spend it? Did you buy any fun rewards for yourself? New car? New house?
Nah, I'm still driving my 98 Blazer with the dent in the side.
There you go.
Nice.
There you go.
Until it dies. But
before the turn of the century, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm only driving a 2000 Santa, man. I ain't got nothing on you.
Yeah.
I just bought a ticket to Orlando, like in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna go see my friend there.
There you go.
And
Nice.
definitely gonna take him to Key West. So
Nice.
That's nice.
Double nice.
yeah, that's the plan at least.
Sweet,
All
dude.
right.
All right. Well, guys, make sure you follow him on Twitter at ppd Dota, ppd
There you go.
Dota. Jesus, dude. But we're going to take another quick break here, guys, and the last leg of this special TI4 post-mortem wrap-up will be underway. We've got James 2 GD Harding coming up next, guys. So buckle your seatbelts and don't go anywhere. In the Studio resumes after this.